All right, guys, so we got through a lot of principles. We've gone through the big, strength principles that we're going to use as like kind of the, 20,000 foot view. We've gone through a lot of exercise variables that we can tweak and change along the way. The next part is kind of figuring out the game plan or thinking about, okay, cool, we have this athlete, now what are we going to do with them? Okay, we've gone through how, are they healthy, are they in shape, are they, all these types of things. And hopefully you guys can go through and use that athlete assessment to determine, where you're at. That's going to be number one. Figure out where your athlete's at or where you're at. What's your body, what do you got going on? How's your body functioning? How are you feeling? All these types of things. And the assessment is the absolute place to start. That'll give you a great idea of what you got to work with, right? From there, you need to think about, okay, cool, well, where are we? Are we off season? Are we 4 weeks out from a fight or a competition? Are we 20 weeks out, 12 weeks out. A lot of times maybe you don't know exactly, you kind of get called up last minute or you get thrown into the mix last minute. But for a lot of people, when your tournaments are coming up, when your fight's coming at least a little bit ahead of time. So that'll give you another variable. That's obviously a hugely important variable to be playing with, right? So once you've assessed, you know where the athlete's at, when the next competition's coming up, then you got to go, okay, cool. What's the primary goal that we need to develop? What's the one thing that is the huge thing that we want to work on in this camp or in this training cycle? Okay? And for some people, that might just be to get them healthy. All right, cool. We're going to get them healthy. We're going to put them in that tune-up program. For other guys, it might be that they need to develop that gas tank. And for a lot of guys, they just need to develop that aerobic base and develop that conditioning base so that they can perform. So if the number one goal is to get that athlete conditioning-wise up to speed, then the primary goal is to increase their gas tank, and depending on whether they're a stand-up fighter or a grappler, how you train that person, right? The exercises and all the different programming might change because a wrestler needs different strengths than a stand-up fighter because there's demands of the sport are very, very different. But you determine the primary goal, and then you might say the secondary goal. Let's say that the primary goal is just conditioning, and then the secondary goal is, hey, I got my shoulders kind of, been bugging me, and maybe we need to do some corrective work to correct that shoulder and just to pull that shoulder blade back and get that shoulder functioning like a joint again versus a lot of times we're all just rounded forward and stuck. So maybe there's some corrective work that we can do for that person. So what I do is I just use a rule of like 70%. Or basically I see my guys 2 or 3 times a week. A majority of those workouts are going to go towards that primary goal. Now, or the majority of the workout when I see them is focused on that primary goal. And maybe a little bit in the beginning, we'll do a little bit of work on the shoulder or towards the end. And then the bulk of the workout is trying to get that guy's energy systems dialed in so that they can perform at their best, right? So the point of this is when you're developing that game plan, you have all those variables, you've determined the goal, you've assessed the athlete, you can discuss with the coaches, which is hugely important to everybody to get on the same page and understand what's going on. We plan out those workouts, which we'll go through more. But the bulk of the workouts, the point of this video is to understand that you have to determine the goal. After you've assessed the athlete, you determine the goals, you figure out what's the one thing, because again, there's so many things we can think about. You've got to say, okay, cool, look, guys, the 1 or 2 things that we're going to attack this camp are X and Y, right? And then once we do that, that helps us then play with those exercise variables to fine-tune the workouts to get what we want. And then the last part, once we plan that workout out, is to execute it, right? And executing it, with combat athletes is going to be a little bit sticky because as if you guys have been in the game for a little while or if you worked with them for quite a while, the execution piece of the puzzle can kind of go sideways on us, and we need to be able to be you can't just write a program and say, wow, this is a great program, and then, execute it. If you can, God bless America, that's amazing, but 9 times out of 10, life gets in the way, guys get tweaks or, things come up, and you're not able to do everything the way you wanted it to, so you need that. You need to be able to be flexible so that you can execute the plan, adjust things along the way, and that's just the way the game goes. But hopefully this will give you a little bit more fine-tuning as we're getting into the place where we're going to start developing programs.